Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Stop Loss with Spencer. Today's topic is contract basis. Contract basis? Spencer. All right, this one is by far, I would say, the component of a stop loss contract that trips the most people up. This is very difficult to understand, especially the first time you've seen it, and especially if you're most accustomed to fully insured contracts where you never have to think about incurred dates or paid dates. So before I dive into contract basis, let's talk about a fully insured scenario. Fully insured 1/1/2019 policy period start date, 12/31/2019 policy period end date. You're accustomed to, you give them your census, you give them your plan design, they understand your risk, you go to one of the BUCA carriers, they turn around and say, hey, here's your quoted premium, pay us that premium, as long as you pay it, we got you. We got your claims. Regardless if you have no claims or a bazillion dollars of claims, we got you, okay? So you never have to think about, well, when is that one actually going to get paid? Well, now, when you're self-funded, very important to think about. So before I dive in again, I always have to put all these disclaimers on the video. This is an educational video. This is not a strategy video. If you're looking for recommendations around strategy, talk to your consultant, talk to a trusted advisor. You could private message me and I'm welcome. I definitely would have this conversation offline, but I don't want to be on the hook. Some guy on LinkedIn told me I needed to do 12-12 and a 24-12 and now I have a huge E&O and blah, blah, blah. I didn't do that, okay? This is education. So the scenario that's most basic for me to describe and that I have the most experience in seeing is you're fully insured like I described in that previous year. Now in year one self-funded, you're going to have a 12-12 contract. Incurred, paid. Incurred in 12 months, paid in 12 months, okay? So the black line shows you incurred dates. The blue line shows you paid dates. Starting for 1/1/2020 policy period, ending 12/31/2020. So any claim that is incurred during that policy period and paid, incurred and paid in those 12 months falls under that stop loss contract, okay? But what happens if you have a claim that happens on, December 24th on Christmas Eve, somebody gets super sick and goes to the hospital and is in the ICU for a few days, God forbid, but that claim is not going to be paid within that policy period. There's no way it's going to be adjudicated before 12/31/2020. So in that instance, this little red dot, illustrates when that claim was incurred, but you know what? That may not get paid till March of next year. Well, guess what? That policy, it's not covering it, okay? So what happens? Well, if you don't know what you're doing, you might sell consult and recommend to your employer, hey, let's just put another 12-12 on the end of that. We're good. No, you're not good. Because what happens if you were to put another 12-12 on the end of this? Yeah, you guessed it. That's going to fall into a gap. That's going to fall on the employer's lap. No matter how big that claim is, because you didn't adequately cover your employer by putting another 12-12 on the other end of that, well, guess what? Not only are you going to have an E&O claim, you're probably going to get fired if you're a broker as well, but your employer is now on the hook for the entirety of that claim because you didn't properly align your contract. So that's why this is super difficult to understand for most people, but it is incredibly important that you do understand it. So I hope there's questions after this. But in year two, how do you protect yourself, right? So I've illustrated in year two a run-in contract of 24-12. Again, incurred, paid. Incurred in 24 months, now paid in 12 months. So what this contract will do is retroactively look back an additional 12 months for claims that were incurred but did not get paid yet. And so what that will do, this new contract, this new policy with your stop loss carrier on a 24-12 contract basis will now capture that claim. The deductible will reset, so you don't get to have the benefit of it continuing to accumulate. But even if your deductible resets in that next year, and now all those dollars now reapplied to that deductible that you purchased, that spec deductible, even though you're still capping your risk if this was a $10 million claim, because you're looking back 12 months to capture those claims that haven't been paid yet, but were incurred during this 24-month period, okay? So now you have coverage. That run-in coverage protects you in year two for that claim that I described. Now, I'm not going to exhaust every possible contract basis. All I've done is show you a 12-12 to a 24-12 move. This is an immature contract. This is a mature contract. There's going to be about a 20 to 25% load and premium for this, but this is going to capture and cover your employer in year 2 to make sure there are no claims that fall into the gap. If I were going to illustrate every single contract basis and strategy, you can't see them, but there's whiteboards on either side of this whiteboard, and I'd have to cover all those and have a cameraman sliding on one of those rails and panning. I just can't do it. But the very most basic year 1 and year 2 self-funded move, again, my experience, not my recommendation, to ensure that you are covered. Now, I didn't draw it year 3. You could do a 36-12, or it might be referred to as a paid contract at that point, because any claim that was incurred back to when they started being self-funded but hadn't been paid yet would be captured. And so you would just tag those on in perpetuity. Some stop-loss carriers, if they're taking over the business, they may only give you a 24-12 or something like that. But for all intents and purposes, you're going to be covered as long as you put a run-in contract after that 12-12. Now, the inverse, you could have a run-out contract, flip those numbers, and in year 1 you might do a 12-24. But again, I'd need a whole other video to explain that. Not the point of this video. The point of this video is education around contract basis, why it is monumentally important as a consultant, as a broker, as a self-funded employer to understand this and to properly align your contract basis year over year. Put together a multi-year strategy to ensure that you never get left holding the bag on a really big claim because these contracts were not properly aligned. Okay, that's contract basis base I in a nutshell. I hope you enjoyed it. Really hope there's some questions on this one, because this is, again, the most complicated, in my opinion, topic around self-funding, and is the one that I would typically receive the most questions when I was out selling stop loss and trying to explain this. It would take a couple exposures to this before people really had that light bulb moment and it clicked. So comment below, questions, comments, concerns. Really appreciate you guys tuning in again, and I'll see you next time where I got some other cool videos that I can't wait to share.